ESPN is down to its final four in its fan vote for the greatest college basketball player ever. Semifinals now are Shaq versus Larry Bird and Magic versus Michael Jordan. So, Shannon Sharpe, who you got for greatest college player ever?
Skip, this is laughable. And you know this is laughable. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was Lou Alcindor then. I will not refer to him by that name. He gave that name up. Kareem, Skip, let this sink in. And I want people to understand what Kareem did. Kareem was 3-0. He won 3 national titles. He was 3 times most outstanding player. He was 3 times National Player of the Year. Kareem lost 1 game. He lost that in the Astrodome to Elvin Hayes' Houston Cougars team. They came back and beat that Cougars team. They won and came back and beat them, Skip, by 32.
They did.
Kareem lost 1 game. Now, I'm not saying he's the most important because that's a tie between Bird and Magic. Because what they did in '79, Skip, changed the landscape of the March Madness in the Final Four. It was never going to be the same. Until this day, it's still the most watched televised basketball game in NBA, and not in the NBA history, in the history of the sport, Skip. And we talk about 2 college players, more than a finals, more than the Olympics, more than anything. Let that sink in. 2 college players did that. So Bird and Magic are most important. But the best college player of all time, Skip, is Kareem, and it's not even close. Kareem averaged 26 points, 15 rebounds, block shots. Remember, Skip, blocks was not an official stat back then. So who knows what he would have done. And remember this, Skip, freshmen also couldn't play. But Kareem's freshman team beat the UCLA team that won the national championship. They scrimmaged against them and beat them. Skip, I love Shaq. But Shaq never got past the Sweet 16. Even with Stanley Roberts and Chris Jackson, who later changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Skip, this is laughable. I love Shaq. But you can't base it on what the guy did in the NBA, Skip. We're talking about college. Skip, Christian Laettner had a better college career than basically everybody else that's in the Final Four. College, we're talking about college, not what they became. College. It's not even close. This is laughable.
Okay, I hear what you're saying about Kareem. I'm actually old enough, I got to watch Wilt Chamberlain play college basketball at Kansas, and it was the same impact where he was just unstoppable. And Kareem was right there with Wilt as a college basketball force. Shaq was in there somewhere, but to your point, Shaq couldn't win, and we're holding that against Shaq. But Shannon, you grew up a fan of one Larry Joe Bird. And I got to tell you, the harder I look at what Larry Bird did with an Indiana State team, Larry Bird went from French Lick, Indiana to Terre Haute, Indiana. And you know how I always joke about how Tom Brady would go out before games and pick 3 guys from Dorchester and say, you 3 guys, come down here and you're going to be my receivers. Well, Larry Bird basically picked 4 guys from Terre Haute and said, you guys come out here and let's go try to win the NCAA championship. And I've never seen anything like what Larry did. Now, he was a senior that year, but again, Carl Nicks was a pretty good player, and he bounced around the NBA for 3 teams and averaged 7 points. But you've never heard of the other 3 guys who were in that starting lineup. No. And Larry Bird took them to 33-0. And when you look at what they did, they destroyed a Dave Bliss team at Oklahoma that I knew because they had wiped out Texas. They're one of the best shooting teams I've ever seen. And Bird wiped them out, wiped out Eddie Sutton's Arkansas team that featured Sidney Moncrief and Scott Hastings, and that DePaul team in the national semifinal that I knew pretty well, Mark Aguirre and company under Ray Meyer, beat them. And then he tried his darndest to beat, Michigan State. But again, when Magic had Greg Kelser, who was a pretty good NBA player, along riding shotgun. And remember, Kelser in that game went 19, 8, and 9. So it was hard for Larry to overcome that. But Shannon,
it was 2 against 1.
I'm going to nitpick here, but it was 2 against 1. But here's a nitpick. Remember, Kareem, as a sophomore and as a junior, had the 2 best guards in America in Lucius Allen and Mike Warren. And Lucius Allen was the 3rd overall pick in the draft, And Mike Warren would have played pro basketball, but he decided to become an actor, and he became a really good one, if you remember him on Hill Street Blues and many other things that he was
I
in.
do.
Yeah, he was great in it.
I do.
Okay, then Kareem's senior year, he's got Sidney Wicks, who was the second overall pick in the draft and became a four-time All-Star in pro basketball, and Curtis Rowe, who was the 11th overall pick and an All-Star in the NBA. So, you know, he did have, I don't know, he had a lot of help at UCLA, and he was coached by the greatest coach ever, John Wooden. So, yeah.
I'll give you that. But let me ask you a question, Skip. If you take Kareem off that team, do you believe they win the national title? If you take those guys off the team, they still win the title. With Kareem, they're winning the title. Nobody was beating him, Skip. The guy lost 2 games. He lost one game in high school, 1 game in college.
Well, listen to the scores of their finals. They beat Dayton 79-64, then Carolina 78-55, and Purdue 92-72. So they wiped everybody out. But I will say in that first game, which I watched live that night from the Astrodome, he did lose to Elvin Hayes, and Kareem had a bad game as a junior against Elvin Hayes because he only scored 15 and shot 4 of 18 from the field. So a little glitch, just a little blemish on the college career there. He did get outplayed one time. So, again, I'm going to give, I know what you're talking about, most important. Yeah, I got it, but most important or most valuable to one season, man, what Bird did was just off the charts. We've never seen anything like that. It's just hard to go that far with that little, and Larry Bird did so much with so little. Highly impressive.
But, Skip, it was just one season. Because remember now, Skip, now he went from French Lick, he had a layover in Bloomington because he went to IU first.
He did.
And then he went to Indiana State.
Bobby Knight.
Right. It was never going to work with Bobby. It was never going to work with Bobby Knight. But, Skip, you think about the totality, Skip. You lose one game in your college career, and you're National Player of the Year 3 times, and you're Most Outstanding Player 3 times with 3 national titles. Skip, and it's never going to be done again, Skip. There might be another undefeated team that lose in the finals, but there'll never be another Kareem what he accomplished. Never.
Okay. My final thought about this topic is I can't believe that LeBron isn't winning right now because he always wins everything, and he didn't even play college basketball.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.